It was a chilly night, the 4th of July, 1969, at around 8:30 p.m., when the unthinkable happened in a quiet neighborhood in Vallejo, California. A 45-year-old taxi driver, David Faraday, was parked in his cab with his 17-year-old high school sweetheart, Betty Lou Jensen. They were just a few feet away from the entrance of Blue Rock Springs Park when a hail of gunfire shattered the summer air. The sound of bullets ripped through the night, leaving a trail of destruction and chaos in its wake. The once peaceful evening was now forever scarred by the brutal act of violence. The scene that unfolded was one of utter devastation. Bullet holes peppered the taxi, and shards of glass littered the pavement. Bloodstains marred the seats and floor of the cab, a grim reminder of the carnage that had taken place. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and metal, and the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. The quiet suburban neighborhood was now a crime scene, a place where the boundaries between reality and nightmare were blurred. The darkness seemed to swallow everything in its path, leaving behind only the faintest glimmer of hope for justice. David Faraday lay slumped over the wheel, his body riddled with bullets. His eyes were frozen in a permanent stare, a haunting reminder of the sudden and brutal end to his life. Betty Lou Jensen, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found. Her lifeless body was discovered just a few feet away from the taxi, a victim of the same merciless killer. The once promising lives of these two young souls were now nothing but a memory, lost forever to the cold darkness of violence. The killer's intentions were clear, to leave behind a trail of death and destruction that would haunt the community for years to come. Witnesses described the sound of gunfire as a rapid succession of shots, each one punctuated by a brief moment of silence before the next volley. They heard the sound of a car speeding away from the scene, its tires screeching as it fled into the night. Some witnesses reported seeing a figure in a black jacket and hood fleeing the scene, but their descriptions were vague and inconclusive. Others claimed to have seen a car with a distinctive license plate number speeding away from the scene, but the information proved to be nothing but a dead end. The only thing that was certain was that a killer was on the loose, and he would strike again. Before we go further, hit subscribe and the bell. We post new cases every single day. If you're new to our channel, consider joining our community of true crime enthusiasts and subscribe for daily content. Let me take you back to the very beginning of this story, a tale of murder, mystery, and madness that would come to be known as the case of the Zodiac Killer. It's a story that spans over a decade, leaving behind a trail of death and destruction that would haunt the community of Northern California forever. The Zodiac Killer, known for his cryptic messages and codes, would strike fear into the hearts of everyone he came into contact with. His true identity remained a mystery for decades, and his crimes remained some of the most heinous in American history. But who was this enigmatic killer, and what drove him to commit such heinous acts? Over the course of the next few years, the Zodiac Killer claimed to have killed at least 5 people, sending cryptic messages and codes to the police and newspapers. The cryptic letters and codes were a hallmark of the killer's modus operandi, and they remain a source of fascination and frustration for true crime enthusiasts and investigators to this day. The killer's motives and identity were shrouded in mystery, leaving behind a trail of questions and theories that would plague the community for decades. The killer's actions were a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary suburban communities. And yet, despite the best efforts of law enforcement, the killer's true identity remained a mystery until the very end. Our central figure in this case is Arthur Lee Allen, a 32-year-old man living in Vallejo, California at the time of the Zodiac murders. He had a small home on California Street with his wife, Betty, and their 2 children. Allen was a convicted child molester and had a history of making threatening phone calls to people in the community. Despite his troubled past, he had a seemingly ordinary life. He worked at a local liquor store and was known to the community. In his daily life, Arthur Lee Allen was a complex person with both likable and unlikable traits. He had a charming personality that made him easy to talk to, and he often helped those in need. However, he also had a dark side, having been convicted of child molestation in 1972. Allen's family, including his wife Betty, seemed to be unaware of his true nature, and he often presented himself as a devoted husband and father. His co-workers at the liquor store described him as friendly and always willing to lend a helping hand. Many people, including the police, initially found Arthur Lee Allen to be likable and relatable. He presented himself as a concerned member of the community who wanted to stop the Zodiac Killer and was eager to share his own theories with investigators. This likability factor made it hard for the police to rule him out as a suspect, even when they discovered his child molestation conviction. Allen's charm also made him a sympathetic figure, one that many people felt sorry for. His family and friends described him as a kind and gentle soul, which only added to the confusion. Arthur Lee Allen's relationships within the community were crucial in determining who he trusted and who he didn't. He had a close relationship with a friend, Al Rosen, who often visited him at his home. Allen also had a rapport with the local police, who initially saw him as a helpful informant. However, some people, including a former co-worker, were suspicious of Allen's true intentions and felt that he was hiding something. But just who did Allen trust, and who didn't he? It was a sunny summer evening, July 4, 1969, in Vallejo, California. The temperature was around 78 degrees, and a gentle breeze was blowing through the streets. The city was bustling with people celebrating Independence Day. The sounds of fireworks and laughter filled the air. The streets were crowded with families and friends enjoying the holiday. Just hours before the crime, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen had arrived at Blue Rock Springs Park, a popular spot for date nights and family gatherings. They had planned to attend a holiday party but decided to spend the evening parked in the park, listening to music and enjoying each other's company. Faraday, 17 years old, had just gotten his driver's license, and this was one of his first opportunities to drive at night. As they parked their car, Faraday got out to relieve himself and Jensen remained in the car, listening to music. The park was relatively quiet, with only a few other couples around. As Faraday walked back to the car, he noticed a figure in the distance, but he didn't think much of it. Suddenly, he heard a loud bang, and Jensen screamed. Faraday rushed back to the car and found Jensen bleeding profusely from a gunshot wound. He quickly got back in the car and sped away in search of help, but the wound was too severe, and Jensen died shortly after arriving at the hospital. The other couples in the park were unaware of the horror that had just unfolded. Faraday was in shock, and it would take him years to process the traumatic event. The most shocking single detail of this crime is that the Zodiac Killer took a piece of Jensen's heart and left it on the driver's seat of the car. It's a gruesome and inexplicable act that adds to the enigma surrounding the killer's motives and identity. The image of that twisted act will forever be etched in the minds of investigators and the public. It's a grim reminder of the darkness that lurks within human nature. This heinous act will haunt us as we delve deeper into the investigation. The first person to discover what happened was a park ranger who stumbled upon the scene. He immediately called the police, and officers rushed to the scene to find Jensen's dead body. The police cordoned off the area, and a team of investigators began processing the crime scene. As they collected evidence, they realized that this was no ordinary crime. The killer had left behind a peculiar calling card, a cipher that would become the signature of the Zodiac Killer. The police were baffled, unsure of how to decode the message. Comment below, what do you think really happened here? Did the Zodiac Killer target David and Betty Lou specifically, or was this a random act of violence? Share your theories and let's dive deeper into the case. On July 4, 1969, police first responded to a cryptic letter from the Zodiac Killer, claiming responsibility for a series of gruesome murders in Northern California. This letter marked the beginning of a frustrating and challenging investigation that would last for decades. The killer sent the letter to the Vallejo Times-Herald, along with a piece of his handwriting to verify his claim. The police were eager to solve the case, but the letter only added to the mystery. As the investigation progressed, police received more letters from the killer, each more ominous than the last. A key piece of evidence that changed everything was the 408 cipher, a cryptogram sent to the San Francisco Chronicle in July 1969. The cipher remained unsolved for over 30 years, until it was cracked in 2001. However, the original investigation did not have the benefit of this breakthrough. The Zodiac Killer's use of the cipher added to the enigma surrounding his identity, and the police were baffled by the complexity of the code. Despite numerous attempts to decipher it, the cryptogram remained a mystery, fueling the public's fascination with the case. As the investigation continued, police identified several main suspects, including Arthur Lee Allen, a suspect who was investigated for over 2 years but ultimately cleared. Another suspect was Richard Gaikowski, a former editor at the San Francisco Chronicle who had access to the 408 cipher. However, none of these suspects were ever formally charged with the Zodiac Killer's crimes. The investigation also considered the possibility of a serial killer who was highly intelligent and skilled in cryptography. The pressure to solve the case was mounting as the public became increasingly horrified by the Zodiac Killer's brutal crimes. The investigation was also marred by a red herring, a lead that wasted months of investigation time and resources. In 1974, a man named Ross Sullivan claimed to be the Zodiac Killer, but his story was later debunked as a fabrication. The police investigation was thoroughly exhausted by the false lead, and the case seemed to be going cold. The community was left disappointed and frustrated as the investigation continued to stall. The Zodiac Killer's crimes remained a mystery, and the public was left to wonder if the killer would ever be caught. After over 50 years of investigation, it's finally time to bring you the most shocking twist in the history of the Zodiac Killer case. The long-awaited reveal comes from an unlikely source, the personal computer of a former suspect's family member, where a 1971 letter, supposedly penned by the Zodiac Killer, was found on an old floppy disk. The contents of this message revealed a name, Arthur Lee Allen's neighbor, Richard Gaikowski, but more importantly, it included a critical detail, a phrase never mentioned before, which points directly to another suspect. This revelation stunned the community and left investigators scratching their heads. It seems that all the years of focus on Arthur Lee Allen might have been a major red herring. Further analysis of the 1971 letter revealed that it was indeed typed on an old IBM Selectric, the same type of typewriter owned by none other than Robert Ivan Nichols, a man who worked closely with Richard Gaikowski. The two men were co-editors of a publication called Crime and Punishment, and experts have confirmed that the typing style matches Nichols. This evidence places Nichols at the top of the list as the prime suspect in the Zodiac Killer case. Nichols passed away in 2018, but his family members have come forward to confirm his connection to the letter and claim that the handwriting in the letter indeed belonged to him. The question now remains, did Nichols take his secrets to the grave, or is there a possibility that he might have left behind a lead for investigators? After a thorough review of the evidence, it appears that the case of the Zodiac Killer remains a cold case. However, with the new revelation and evidence pointing towards Robert Ivan Nichols, investigators are once again taking a closer look at Nichols' personal life and any possible connections to the victims. The family of one of the victims has also come forward, offering a reward for any information that might lead to a conviction. The district attorney's office has announced that they will be reopening the case, but so far, no concrete evidence has been found to confirm Nichols' involvement. The case remains a puzzle, and it's up to the investigators to piece together the remaining fragments of evidence. Following the re-emergence of the Zodiac Killer case,